Loyola, Maryland beat Lehigh 77-73. Lafayette over Holy Cross 69-68. And the Horizon, Oakland beat Green Bay 96-72. Northern Kentucky over Detroit Mercy 99-75. Wright State over IU Indianapolis 98-85. And the Sun Belt Southern Miss beat Coastal Carolina 66-63. In overtime, Louisiana beat Louisiana Monroe 73-69. Men's top 25 last night. Big upset as number 22 Texas A&M beat Auburn 83-72. The number 1 Tigers dropped to 15-2 in the SEC. In overtime, Texas beat number 25 Mississippi State 87-82. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the Sports Grid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter?
Right? And the best part? They accept Discover.
Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right, so we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback, I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
I had the worst dream last night. You were in a car crash and the kids and I were on our own. We had to move out of the house because I couldn't afford it anymore.
That's awful, hon.
My brother was saying he got life insurance from Ethos. With Ethos, it only took 10 minutes and he got $2 million in coverage for around $2 a day. It's all online. No medical exam. He just answered a few health questions right from his house.
Ethos, here we come.
Visit getethos.com. That's getethos.com.
Sample rate is a 10-year term life policy for 35-year-old healthy, non-smoking.
You've heard of smart bombs, smartphones, smart cars, smart watches, and smart glasses. Now you can add smart player, giving you sports gaming strategies and information 24/7. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The only place in football where the offense is always on the field is on Moneyline. With the two best hosts in radio, Donnie Rightside.
If anybody wasn't watching, listen, I don't know what you were doing.
And Kevin Walsh.
Forget act like you've been there before.
On the SportsGrid Radio Network, SiriusXM Channel 159.
That's every day now officially underway. It is Moneyline. Yes, it's your boy DRS. It is a solo mission. I got you for the next hour. The hottest topics across the sports landscape you know we're going to get to, which includes college basketball. What happened last night? What's going to happen tonight? Because I got you for the hour here. And we're on a solo mission. We can go down that handicapping route, which you know a lot of you love. Got some games picked out tonight. Some sides I think we can make some money on. New conference tournaments tipping off on a day-to-day basis here on the lower mid-major levels. Next week, we've already talked about how big a week that is for the high majors getting involved in afternoon basketball when we're going to be doing these type of shows and previewing games just about to tip off. That's what we love. And also, you know what else you guys love? The Sports Grid Network and the easiest ways to actually watch, listen, and learn. You go ahead and you get sportsgridradio.com. Hit it. Listen to us. You also have the Sports Grid app. Maybe the single best app in the sports handicapping business. Follow your favorite host right here on the Sports Grid Network and get up to date on everything you need to make you a smarter handicapper. Or if you're just listening right now on SiriusXM Channel 159 like most of us are, and away we go specifically on our YouTube channel. You want to watch the radio show. You want to reach out to a host. You go. Sports Grid on demand. Almost 7,000 people now subscribe there. Come into the chat box. Say hello. You got a hot take. You got plays you got out there. Come on now. Shout outs. Do what you got to do. Have some fun. Keep it in tune. But that's the best way to do it. Business now out of the way. You know how to get us on the grid each and every day you listen. Just wanted to explain it for some people out there that are just getting down with the Sports Grid Network. But football is always on our mind. We're going to get the basketball, people. We got a ton of it. The NBA, college basketball, you name it. But sometimes the NFL just hits you with bangers every morning, which included today. The Kansas City Chiefs trading all-pro guard Joe Thuney over to the Chicago Bears, who have a lot of draft capital and a lot of money to spend. A fourth-round pick, and it wasn't even this year. It's next year's fourth-round pick for the Bears. So still keeping their picks intact for the season, adding 2 offensive linemen to protect your biggest asset in Mr. Caleb. And Caleb Williams, with maybe the very best play caller in the National Football League as his head coach, Ben Johnson, and an improving offensive line. What's not to like? Is it a tough division? You know it is. Minnesota's really good, regardless of the quarterback coming back next year. Kevin O'Connell will have them in store. The Green Bay Packers, what are they going to do in the offseason? Can they add a number one wide receiver? What will they do? Is it DK Metcalf, where they're trying to work out a deal for? Is it going to be Devontae Adams going home? Good football team. The Detroit Lions, one of the best football teams out there. Lost their offensive coordinator, which did go to Chicago. That's going to hurt. But talent for talent, healthy team there. Their roster plays with just about anybody in the NFL. And then you have the Chicago Bears on the upswing with Caleb Williams, a great head coach, a lot of talent, and a lot of money to spend. Their offseason is just underway. Love what they're doing. Now, also, there is a method to the madness out here. The Kansas City Chiefs aren't just trading away Joe Thuney because they feel like, oh, he's the best offensive lineman in the league, and we're really bad on offensive line. There is a salary cap. There are restraints here, but understand this. They see Joe Thuney on a day-to-day basis, and maybe they're feeling like he wants a new contract extension. We're not willing to pay that. Let's move on from him. We'll save some cap space. We'll reinvest in our offensive line and get a little bit younger, and we feel that's in the best interest for us here. And maybe so. Don't mind what the Chiefs are doing. They're smart enough to retool. They got a great general manager in Brett Veach. Obviously, Andy Reid is the head coach, and anytime you have Patrick Mahomes, you are going to be just fine next year. We'll see some of the moves they make. That's already one of them. From a Bears perspective, love what I see. Can't have too many good offensive linemen to surround the young quarterback. And if your offense wants to work, you better protect the quarterback, and Ben Johnson absolutely is doing that. But I'll tell you the stinger, which was, I wasn't on the air when this went down, caught us a little bit off guard. Saquon Barkley re-upping with the Philadelphia Eagles 1 year into a contract with the Eagles, now being paid as the highest paid running back in NFL history at over $20 million per year. Now, it is all semantics. He was going to make a lot of money already under his contract. And how crazy the salary cap works is you sign Saquon Barkley to more money than anybody's ever seen year to year as a running back, but somehow that cap number is probably going to be less than what it was going to be. Make it make sense? Sometimes it doesn't here. So I do think that was a big move by the Eagles, who do have some chips to play. They released Darius Slay and also James Bradbury, figuring out that's going to save him up maybe $7 million against the cap. Josh Sweat probably not coming back. Milton Williams not coming back. So their cap space is right around that $25 to $30 million range. But Zach Bond is set to become a free agent because they didn't put the franchise tag on him, and rightfully so. You're not going to pay a middle linebacker $25+ million per year to hit against the cap if you can't work out a long-term deal. So we'll see where they go. But I love also this move. Talked about it this morning. I know if you're a Jets fan out there, and if I'm talking to any of you guys, I love what your franchise is doing. Systematically tearing down with a new regime, both general manager and head coach, of what you saw for the past 2 years, which was the Aaron Rodgers regime in New York. It didn't work out. It was an abject failure for the expectations of Aaron Rodgers coming in and what you actually got, which was like 3 plays in the 2023 season, and then you got a disastrous 2024 season, which didn't end up in a playoff run. You can't have that. So a new coach and general manager comes in and says, Aaron, we're probably better with you right now than the alternative, but that's not what the future is about for our organization. Then you see Devontae Adams, who is still a quality wide receiver, still part of that Aaron Rodgers crew, just cut him outright, didn't even make a trade, saved like $25 million on the cap. You see Alan Lazard, another good friend of Aaron Rodgers, now in the trading block. They're trying to cut the cancerous tumors out of that franchise enough to move forward. And it might not benefit them this year. And I'm not saying it's going to. But over the next 2 to 3 years, if Aaron Glenn is able to install exactly what Dan Campbell did in Detroit, which means that grit, toughness, and we're going to play and win as a team, trust me on that, I like where the Jets are going here. I really do. Like the sky is the like for the first time in 15 years, it feels like Jets fans actually have their team back. Even though the equation might not appear to be great this year. And who knows? We don't even know who the quarterback's going to be, who their draft pick is going to be, what the style is going to be at this point. But moving forward off of what didn't work, because insanity is doing things over and over and over and expecting this different result, right? You get the same result. Aaron Rodgers didn't work in New York. It's him coming back for one more year. You know what? It's not going to work again. Even if you look at his end of the year statistics, where they weren't all that bad, you say, boy, man, he can make their team better. Yes, he can. But what is better? 8 wins? Hurting your draft stock? Not getting a quarterback of the future? Again, you're either all in or you're all out in professional sports. Don't give me the Band-Aids. Band-Aids never work. They don't help you short term, and they don't help you long term at that point. So from the NFL landscape, what's next to drop on this point now? I see Sam Hubbard released from the Cincinnati Bengals defensive end, but I think he's retiring also after 7 seasons. That'll save him $9.5 million. They cut Alex Kappa yesterday, saved them $8 million. They're making moves all over to try to afford their most expensive players. And don't even get me started how their business model works, because it doesn't make any sense. Slap once again with a franchise tag to have him count $26, $27 million against the cap where he'd be angry playing. And then Jamar Chase, who the Bengals agree, are like, you know what? We're going to pay you as the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. And Jamar's just saying, yeah, that's good. And his camp's like, you know what? We're still not even close on an agreement at this point, which shows you how much money he's asking for, which it never had to be this way, Cincinnati, but it turned like it did. Odigizua signs yesterday for the Cowboys, 4 years and $80 million. How about his cap hit this year? $5 to $6 million. That's it. That works, people. That's the way to do it. That's how you do business. No franchise tags. Boy Donnie right side, it's a Wednesday hump day on a solo mission, and we'll be back right after this break.
We give you expert analysis and information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Any easier and the government would ban us. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. Police and a middle school in suburban New York are looking into how a student got a hold of marijuana gummies and gave them to about a dozen schoolmates, sending 11 of them to the hospital. The episode happened Monday at William Floyd Middle School on Long Island. The sickened students were 13 and 14 years old, according to Suffolk County Police. No criminal charges had been filed as of Tuesday. It wasn't immediately clear whether any students will face discipline. Kroger announced on Monday that CEO Rodney McMullen has resigned after a board of investigation of his personal conduct. Lead director Ronald Sargent has been appointed interim CEO effective immediately. Kroger said McMullen's conduct was, quote, unrelated to the business, but was inconsistent with Kroger's policy on business ethics. Kroger said that last month the board was made aware of certain personal conduct by McMullen and immediately hired an outside attorney to conduct an investigation. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
With Progressive, renters can save on protection for the things that make your place yours, even things that don't make sense to everyone.
People always wonder why I don't get rid of my guitar since I never play. But it's like, what if I actually end up taking lessons? Sure, I've had it for 8 years, but if I get rid of it, then what will my New Year's resolution be next January?
Exactly. So bundle your renters and auto and save with Progressive and protect the things that make sense to you. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates and other insurers not available in all states or situations. Covered subject to policy terms and conditions.
You don't have to listen to SportsGrid. You can always go out in the woods at night, look up, and wish on a shooting star. Or you can get the winning edge right here. And you won't find any ticks on you the next day. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
I told you. We're going to talk college basketball today and the NBA. We got a lot of stuff to look forward to because why? We're just about to start dancing out here. We are almost at March Madness. The official start, I guess it would be Selection Sunday. I'm in March Madness mode right now. That's what I am. I want to dance. I want to have fun. And yesterday was profitable for your boy DRS. Number 1 Auburn, number 22 Texas A&M yesterday from College Station. Auburn 15-1 in the SEC goes into that game. Auburn leaves that game 15-2 in the SEC. An 83-72 victory for Texas A&M. And handicapping that game yesterday, they put out a couple videos. The Texas A&M team total over 72.5 came in. Why? Because they scored 83 points. I thought it was a decent matchup for A&M, who hadn't been playing all that great basketball down the stretch. But sometimes you still have to trust the numbers and where they make sense. You might have said, Donnie, why don't you just take the game itself where A&M was getting a couple points? I wasn't really to trust that because we know when Auburn really turns on the gas pedal, they will hammer you. I mean, clearly, 27-3 on the season, one of the toughest conferences there is, and still being 15-2, and also trying to still fight and get that outright conference championship for themselves, which we're going to dip into a game tonight in just a few moments, which might have a little bit of an impact on that from an in-state rivalry there. But 83-72, A&M knocks off Auburn. Another game I got right, and we will say this time and time again. Sometimes the gambling gods laugh at you. Sometimes the gambling gods absolutely shine for you. And why is that? I had a game yesterday. I had no business on winning until we went to 1 overtime and 2 overtimes. What was that? You saw me loving yesterday with Iowa State. They're going to beat BYU. They lost that basketball game, 88-85. But also, Iowa State's team total in that game, 79.5. The end of regulation, 68 points. You're like, man, can't believe it. We got crushed in that game. Nope. You go to overtime, it is your best friend. They end up getting the 85 points, which was great. But by the way, if you guys didn't listen to the early line this morning, why you're not doing that, I don't know. 8 to 11 a.m., Monday through Friday, Ben Stevens and your boy DRS. This was a statistical anomaly type game. 29 turnovers for the BYU offense. And by the way, let me just bring up Ken Palm quickly. I just want to check a statistic here real quick for BYU. Let me just type in BYU. Boop, boop, boop. Let's see what we got, because I just want to see coming into the game in the season. So they are prone to turnovers overall. 12th in conference play. 29 turnovers, 23 personal fouls, and they won that basketball game. Like, you have 29 turnovers on one side. The other side, Iowa State, has 11. So a plus 18 in the turnover battle for Iowa State, and they lost at home at Hilton. Well, the magic usually happens. Didn't play all that great. 28% from the three-point line, 39% from the field. But look at the rebounding advantage, too, from those turnovers. BYU had 52 rebounds. Iowa State only had 24 rebounds. One of the more crazy games to look at just from the box score. But you got to say, man, absolutely credit to BYU. It's one of those teams that I have a hard time trusting because they really do, for the most part, live and die by the three-point shot. But that's a big-time victory, because I told you guys yesterday, sort of looking in that Big 12, meat grinder, if you will, coming out of the end to win the national championship, 30-1 and 20-1, respectively, Iowa State and Texas Tech. Still have my eye on that, but that's a bad loss for Iowa State, but maybe giving you a better price point when it's all said and done. Double overtime victory. BYU was the better team, even though in the second half, Iowa State scored 44 points and outscoring them by 9 points here to push to overtime. But BYU hanging around, still winning that game was impressive. Memphis, UTSA, who cares? Nobody could care less. Here's another game that I like, the over, that we talked about in the early line yesterday. It was Purdue and Rutgers, 100-71. Purdue absolutely laid waste to Rutgers, who is now 14-16 on the season and 7-12 in the Big Ten. I said, well, that sounds like Rutgers basketball. Not necessarily over the past couple of years. A real competitive team, even in the Big Ten. And you have 2 of the top 3 players in the country commit to you and play, in Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, and you stink? Make it make sense, because it doesn't. But great performance. And by the way, you want to talk about a team that can get hot from the three-point line and a team that doesn't want to defend anything? Purdue yesterday against Rutgers, 18 of 36 from the three-point line. Yeah, that's 50% at volume. Absolutely blew away the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Kentucky at home against lowly LSU handled their business by 31, 95-64. And I didn't check the box score here. With a 3-point, not really. 12 made 3-point shots is a decent number, but out of 32, shot about 38%. Brea 2 for 7, but the bench went nuts. Chandler 3 of 6. Garrison 2 of 5. Almanor 3 of 4. Only 11 free throw attempts taken, but Kentucky really hammered them in that game. Out west, late night, Arizona 113, Arizona 100, a blowout victory there. And Mississippi State continues to fall and will be falling out of the top 25 by the time we talk next week. They lose to Texas at home in overtime, 87-82. Now, we look towards Wednesday's card. We know there's always a lot of ranked versus ranked matchups here because the big boys are still playing and closing out their regular seasons. We're going to go over a couple of these games here. Maryland, Michigan, I think there's a pathway to victory there. Florida, Alabama, that one as well. Clemson, Boston College, yup. Haven't looked at the Colorado, Texas Tech game, but we will. And you know what? Even though I only have about a minute here, we're going to start down that path in just a moment. Because again, I am digging Texas Tech now that they're back healthy. I was digging Iowa State. Yeah, look, they cashed a ticket for me last night. Didn't lose any money on them. But I didn't like that loss per se against BYU. That should be a game that a finesse team really comes into town and you handle your business. And they basically try to hand you the basketball game with all of those turnovers. And you didn't take advantage. That's a little worrisome. Wisconsin, Minnesota, not all that interested there. Missouri, Oklahoma, Marquette, UConn do have a side in that one. Tennessee, Ole Miss, not a really big Tennessee fan. And Louisville, California, which should be a blowout victory for Louisville, but I don't love the matchup per se. Just wish that California was like, you know what? Shoot as many three-point shots as you want to here, make as many as you want, and away you go in that aspect. But the college basketball card is pretty deep tonight, and we're going to dip into that next. So we'll start Alabama and Florida. We'll hit Maryland, Michigan, and UConn, Marquette coming up right after the break. Let's find some winners, baby. Hot yesterday with the team totals. Can we do it again today? Let's find out. It's your boy DRS. We'll be right back.
Loser is kind of a mean-spirited slur.
But it doesn't have to stick.
Tell them to listen to SportsGrid and fix it.
No, thank you. Later.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
In 1966, player reps elect Marvin Miller as executive director of the Major League Baseball Players Association. In 1968, Miller created a collective bargaining agreement, but its biggest impact was the birth of free agency, opening the door for million-dollar contracts like Catfish Hunter in 1974.
To be a Yankee is a thrill. I always wanted to be here in New York and play.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
The University of Copenhagen's new AI machine learning model can understand the emotional state of animals just by listening to them. With 89.4% accuracy, it acoustically distinguishes positive and negative emotions from 7 different species, including cows,
it's a beautiful day,
pigs,
stop stealing my slop,
and even wild boars.
Have you ever had one of those days?
This breakthrough universal animal emotion translator, a game changer for barnyard quality of life.
You're standing on my foot.
Follow me at G Capalbo on X and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast.
The St. John's Red Storm at 9. Don't give me that funny face, Mike.
I'm trying to figure out where you're going with this.
Well, where I'm going is that I think that Duke, Houston, Tennessee, and for me, St. John's are the 4 best defensive teams in America. I want to know how in God's name they could possibly be 9 on yours.
It's Pharrell Coast to Coast with Scott Farrell. Weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. On the home of the winning edge, the SportsGrid Radio Network. Winning is no accident.
You gotta be smart about it.
It takes a plan. All centered around expert analysis and trusted information.
That's what you get.
Right here. The winning edge. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Oh, right back at it here. It's glorious. It's a Wednesday. Sitting here in early March. If I'm in the Northeast and you're in the Northeast and it's cold weather and it's windy over the next couple days, just understand this. In a few short weeks, we're going to have Major League Baseball. The weather's going to start to heat up. March Madness on the horizon. Big things at the SportsGrid Network. And people getting paid in football. And by the way, if you don't understand why the Philadelphia Eagles paid your boy Saquon Barkley, listen to this.
Here's Barkley, a little shovel. Looking for an edge. Gets it.
Oh!
Saquon Barkley.
Oh! Woo! Oh! Oh!
Touchdown!
Oh! Yeah, see that? Love it. Playing little drops there in the offseason. Who said it can't be football season 24/7 around here? I love it. But you know what else I love? College basketball. getting after it and handicapping games. Let's go to the Big Ten. Number 13, Michigan, 22-7 on the season, 12-6 in the Big Ten. Headed to take on Michigan at the Chrysler Center, 22-7 also, 14-4 in the Big Ten. Two quality basketball teams here. Line currently sits here. Opened up in New Jersey as a minus 1.5 point favorite towards Michigan. We now sit at 2.5 across the board. It's hard to win on the road. We understand that. Total in this game, 153.5, still sitting there. Hasn't made too much movement. We're expecting points in this game. Big Ten Network, early start, as we said, 6:30 p.m. If you look at the Maryland offense, which is decent, I should say, 5 out of 18 teams in conference play in efficiency. They shoot the three-point shot very well. Number 2, effectively, in conference play at 37%. Michigan's defense is a decent defensive team, 6 out of 18 teams overall. They defend the three-point shot pretty well, 32.5%, which is 5th overall in conference play. If we look at the styles here, 16th out of 18 teams at volume from the three-point line, that's Maryland. But they make number 2 as the percent at 37%. So what does that mean? They're not actively seeking out the three-point shot, but if it's there and it's open, they will make it. That's a key component, particularly with going on the road. If we look at the point distribution on defense, 9th in two-pointers for the percentage of points here for Maryland, 9th on defense for the percentage of shots made against Michigan on defense as a percentage. I think it's a pretty good matchup here for Maryland on offense. They should be able to score in the paint, and when the three ball is open, they should be able to knock it down. Now let's get over to the Michigan Wolverines on offense, because Maryland is number 2 in defense of efficiency in Big Ten conference play, once again out of 18 teams. You know which team turns it over more than any other team in conference play? That's the Michigan Wolverines at almost 20%. So 1 out of every 5 possessions is not ending up in a shot, it's ending up in a turnover. That could be detrimental. You also take a look at Michigan, one of the better teams in conference play, getting to the free throw line. Number 2 in conference play. Going up against a team that doesn't foul that much. Only 6th in conference play, so you might not have that added advantage. Now, the one thing that Michigan likes to do a lot is shoot the three-point shot. They're not very good with the percentage at making it. They're actually 17th out of 18 teams in conference play at 31.6%. Conversely, we told you, Maryland's defense is very good. They turn you over. They rebound pretty well. They don't foul that much, but they also defend the three-point line. They're number 3 in conference play, once again, out of 18 teams at defense on the three-point line. So catch and shoot, hand in the face, you're not making that much. But here's what's more important. Michigan loves the three-point shot volume-wise. They're 3rd in conference play at volume out of 18 teams, which means they're actively seeking out the three-point shot, but not making a high percentage of it. Well, how does that match up against Maryland's defense from the three-point line itself? I just told you, they're very good at defending it, but how about this? Number 2 in conference play at chasing you off of the three-point line. That's big. That's big. That's your advantage. So if you're looking to go on the road, handle the three-point line, don't let Michigan get off the three-point line, force the turnovers, which Michigan will have, and I think you'll come away with a victory with Maryland. So I look at that short price here for Michigan. I'm going to take Maryland getting the 2.5 points and go against the line movement in this spot as game number 1 that I'm looking at, just in some of the bigger games. Game number 2, this is a good one in the SEC. It's Florida coming to town to take on Alabama at 25-4 overall. You take a look at Florida in the SEC, 12-4 overall. Look at the Alabama Crimson Tide, 23-6 on the season, identical record in the SEC at 12-4. See if they can handle their business tonight here up against Florida. That game is at home. So if I get the updated odds here, double my screen, 178.5 is the total. Astronomical. That basically, in layman's terms, both teams getting what? 89 points in this one. The line is Alabama opened up at 3.5, still sits at 3.5 across the board. We're going to handicap this one coming out of the break because, again, the tail of the three-point line sometimes tells the tale of the tape. And I want to go over line by line why I actually like Alabama to win this game at home over the Florida Gators. We'll be right back. It's Moneyline in the afternoon right here on the Grid.
It's easy to get SportsGrid almost anywhere with our mobile app.
So give us a break.
We're not going to tap your screen for you. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. Women's hoops on Tuesday in the Sun Belt Championship first round. Georgia Southern beat Southern Miss 70-59. Marshall over South Alabama 73-59. Horizon League Tournament, Oakland over IU Indianapolis 62-56. Detroit Mercy beat Milwaukee 73-62. SEC Tournament first round today, Texas A&M battles Tennessee, Georgia faces Arkansas, Mississippi State battles Missouri, Florida against Auburn. ACC first round, Clemson battles Stanford, Virginia faces Pitt, Boston College takes on Syracuse. Big Ten, Wisconsin versus Iowa, Nebraska against Rutgers, Washington faces Minnesota. Big 12, Texas Tech takes on Kansas, Cincinnati against Arizona State, Houston battles Colorado, BYU against UCF. A10, Loyola Chicago against George Washington, St. Bonaventure faces St. Louis, VCU against LaSalle. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Coverage varies by plan. View contracts and exclusions at EnduranceWarranty.com. Auto repair bills are through the roof. $3,000 to replace the transmission. $4,000 for a blown engine. And if your manufacturer's warranty is expired, you'll have to cover it all out of pocket. You need an Endurance Auto Protection Plan. No matter what the mileage, if your car is under 20 years old, Endurance can get you covered on the engine, electrical system, transmission, AC, drivetrain, and more. Endurance has plans for any budget. Repairs can be done at the certified mechanic of your choice, and they're paid directly with no middleman. Plans cover 24/7 roadside assistance, towing, battery jumps, fuel deliveries, tire changes, lockout services, and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Act now and get our elite benefits, including complete tire care and key fob replacement. A $2,000 value at no extra cost. With Endurance, you could never pay for covered auto repairs again, so call now for your free quote. Call 800-380-9012. 800-380-9012. Again, that's 800-380-9012.
How to tell if you have the winning edge. Take a sheet of paper.
Crumple into a ball.
Throw it at a trash can. Even if you miss, so long as you're listening to us.
You have it. Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Oh, we got a tussle in Tuscaloosa tonight, people. Yes, we do. Number 5 versus number 7. That's Florida and Alabama. SEC action. And I told you I wanted to handicap this game because I do think the Alabama Crimson Tide are the better team tonight. As I pointed out before the break, Alabama is a 3.5-point favorite in this game over Florida. Total 178.5. Astronomical, so much fun, great tempo, and great offenses going at it. If we're just looking at offensive efficiency, Alabama number 1 overall in conference play, Florida number 4. So you're going to get a pretty clean slate out of this. One thing that does benefit the Florida Gators on offense is Alabama's defense will not turn you over. Therefore, you should get any shot that you want. However, some of those shots come a little bit differently than others, depending on which type of gameplay you want to try to execute. Looking at the Florida Gators, 15th out of 16 teams in the SEC at getting to the free throw line. Point distribution for their offense, 16 out of 16 teams at only 16.8% of their total offense coming to the line. So on the road in a close game, that's probably not going to prove dividends for Florida. And also, if they do get to the free throw line, check this out. Is that 69% from the free throw line. Dead last in SEC competition. Close game. Can't trust the free throw shooters. That could be an issue that pops up. Alabama's defense is decent. Not great. Midway in the SEC. They don't turn the basketball. They don't turn the people over, which is what the issue is. But having said that, look at Florida's offense as a whole. They shoot the three-point shot pretty well as a team at 36%. You're on the road, so maybe that take a little bit of a downgrade. But you look at their volume from three-point range. It's number 2 in conference play. 44% of their shots come from the three-point line, and they make a decent amount. That's why they're such a good basketball team. And if you allow them to shoot the three-point shot, they'll provide dagger after dagger against you. But Alabama's defense, again, middling, but they do a couple things really well. And that includes defending the three-point line. They only give up 31% from three-point range in conference play. That's good for third best in the conference. But how about this more important statistic? We just told you Florida loves to jack up three-point shots. What if I told you Alabama is the best in conference play at chasing you off of the three-point line? That's an advantage. You look at Alabama's offense as opposed to their defense, it's number 1 with a bullet in the SEC. Efficiency rating, 120.2, number 1. Effective field goal percentage, number 1. second best offensive rebounding team in the SEC, fourth best at getting to the line, third best at making the three-point shot, and when they don't make the three-point shot and they go inside the paint, a league best 58% inside the arc. So for me, it's simple. It's a great spot for the Alabama Crimson Tide at home to jumpstart the final few games of their season before they head into SEC conference play. I think it makes sense. I'll lay the 3.5 with the Alabama Crimson Tide as it starts right now. Let's keep moving down the list here on the top 25 games tonight. And some of these could be blowouts, which to me, these are a little bit easier to handicap. And we're talking about those Clemson Tigers, who after losing in 3 overtimes to Georgia Tech on February 4th, they actually beat the Duke Blue Devils. They beat North Carolina. They beat Florida State. They beat SMU. They beat Notre Dame. They beat Virginia. And you might say, hey, outside of Duke, who might be the number one team starting next week if they just beat UNC this weekend before they head into the ACC tournament, well, Carolina's not that good, beat them by 20. Florida State's not that good, 72-46 final. SMU away on the road. And by the way, that Florida State game was on the road where they hammered them. 79-69, double-digit win. Notre Dame at home, not a very good basketball team, doesn't matter, won by 15 points. Go on the road against Virginia, not a very good basketball team, doesn't matter, won that game by double digits. 2 games to end the season, Boston College and Virginia Tech, 2 teams that aren't that good here. So they're hoping, talking about the Duke Blue Devils, they lose to Carolina, and you can win out as Clemson and grab a share of that conference title. But you still got to get through those next 2 games, which they will, which is Boston College tonight, who is really bad. The one thing that we do know about Clemson, they're going to move at their own pace here. But how many teams are in the ACC? 18 teams. You know who's the worst offense in conference play? It's BC. Turn the ball over ridiculous amount of times. And by the way, 16th out of 18 teams are turning the basketball over. Can I tell you who the number one team in ACC conference play at turning you over is on defense? That's the Clemson Tigers. And that's usually a death nail. BC doesn't get to the free throw line. Clemson doesn't foul. The ultimate equalizer, as I like to point out in conference basketball play / college basketball play, is the 3-point line. If you can shoot it a lot, get hot, and be effective, you can take down some big teams. You look at the line tonight. This is a road game. Opened up at 13.5 as a favorite towards Clemson. We're now sitting at 15.5 at most outlets, 15 at Bet365. Total in this game is down 1 point from 137.5 at the opening number to 136.5. But that's because BC is terrible. BC turns it over, doesn't offensively rebound, doesn't get to the free throw line, doesn't make free throws when they get there. They don't shoot a lot of 3-point shots either. As I told you, an equalizer for a team that's looking to make a comeback in a game and or pull an upset. 16th out of 18 teams in volume, 8th around 18 at making the 3-point shot. And by the way, Clemson, very good defenders of the 3-point line, 3rd best in conference play. So BC's defense can't be as bad as their offense. Technically, it's not, but it's 15th out of 18 teams. Like Clemson's 2nd most efficient offense in conference play. They would be the best if Duke didn't happen to reside in the ACC. They don't turn the basketball over when BC doesn't turn you over either. They rebound on offense when BC doesn't rebound at all on defense. Now, Clemson doesn't get to the line that much. We know who fouls more than any other team in conference play. It's Boston College. The 3-point shot, which BC will chase you off the line, Clemson's not overwhelming. They shoot 39% of their total offense from 3, but 2nd in conference play at 39% as a team. This game looks like it has 20-point blowout all over it here for Clemson. As we said, 2 games left for Clemson. Need to win both of those. Maybe you can make a run in the ACC. Maybe knock off Duke. You never know where you sit on that 2-line, 3-line, 1-line. If you can pull off a miracle and some teams lose some basketball games down the stretch. But that's what I look at. Now, this next game we're going to go over, which I haven't handicapped yet, so I'm going to do it right with you guys on the air. It's Colorado at Texas Tech. And Colorado in Big 12 play is 2-16 overall. Brutal. 11-18 on the season. You take a look at Texas Tech, 13-5 in the Big 12, getting healthy now, 22-7 overall on the season. Let me see what they did in their last game against each other. So let's see. Texas Tech. Actually, this is their first game they're going to play this season, which is so interesting. We have so many teams in a conference, but I don't see them For Iowa State, Arizona State, UCF, yeah, they're not. This is their first game of the season. They're going to play against each other, which is interesting. And Texas Tech, on the other hand, after getting beat by Houston, which, what did you expect? They had multiple guys out for that game. Nice bounce-back performance on the road at the Fog by knocking off Kansas 78-73. Now take on Colorado at home. So going through this one, we know we have a very good team in Texas Tech against a really poor team in Colorado. 16 teams in the Big 12. Colorado's dead last on offensive efficiency at 16 overall. Turnovers, one of the worst teams. And by the way, I didn't see this in the nation. They're 354th in the nation at turning the basketball over on offense. By far the worst team in conference play, 16 out of 16 doing that. Texas Tech does have the number one rebounding defense in conference play. Now, the one thing that could help them a bit, Colorado, is they do get to the free throw line, and Texas Tech does foul a bit. But Colorado doesn't make three-point shots, average at shooting from the line. But the focus here really is going to be on Texas Tech and what they want to do from an offensive perspective. They're third in conference play in efficiency against Colorado 12th overall. Also understand this. They don't turn the basketball over on offense. They don't really get to the free throw line. But again, Colorado, 16th out of teams of 16 in the Big 12 at fouling. The three-point line comes into play. Texas Tech loves to shoot the three-point shot. And Colorado, about midway in the conference at chasing you off of the line. But if you're number 2 in conference play like Texas Tech is, where 45% of their shots come from three-point range, they're good at shooting it. 36% as a team, good for number 3 overall. Texas Tech should be able to maul Colorado tonight at home. Line 17.5, though. Maybe a team total makes more sense here. But I did want to get a look at that game as a smash job. More college basketball and NBA on the way. It's Moneyline.
You're listening to one of the last places on earth where a man can be a man and not get those looks.
Welcome aboard, good sir.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. The Eagles have signed Saquon Barkley to a 2-year contract extension worth more than $41 million. He led the NFL with 2,005 rushing yards while adding 13 touchdowns last season. He also hauled in 33 catches for 278 yards and 3 more touchdowns en route to being named the NFL's Offensive Player of the Year. Edge rusher Max Crosby is hoping that Aaron Rodgers will join the Las Vegas Raiders. The Jets announced on February the 13th that they plan to part ways with him after 2 seasons. The Raiders have lacked consistency at quarterback. They started 3 different passers in 2024 en route to going 4-13. The Vikings won't franchise tag quarterback Sam Darnold. The team wants to continue to work towards a deal that's suitable for both parties. The Jets have released wide receiver Devontae Adams, who was acquired in October from the Raiders for a 3rd-round pick. Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
One of life's greatest mysteries has finally been solved.
Who let the dogs out?
It's Spruce, the new hard-working, worry-free weed and grass killer that's safe for use around people and pets. When used as directed, spray the leaves for visible results in just 1 hour and dead weeds in just 1 day. You spray, they play. Weeds die by the next day. Find Spruce wherever weed killers are sold.
What was that? That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud Phone System. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very
calm. I am. Ooma has everything I need to handle the busy holiday season, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business comm at ooma.com/radio.
When it comes to odds on daily sporting events, it's complicated when you factor in everything from current wind speed
to how hot a player's girlfriend is.
But you don't have to mess with that.
Just keep it here
and listen.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Yeah, college basketball dancing. Well, almost. The official start to the dance next Sunday, not this Sunday, next Sunday night, Selection Sunday. And then away we go. First 4 games from Dayton, Ohio, and the rest is history. We'll have fun. We'll bet it. SportsGrid Network is the place that you certainly want to be. But you know where else is the place you want to be tonight? If you can, get there. 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Fox Sports 1, the Gamble Pavilion, Storrs, Connecticut, the back-to-back reigning two-time NCAA champions. The Yukon Huskies are going to take on Marquette. Love this game. And by the way, this morning, put out a video at 2.5 for Connecticut. That line is up to 4.5 at some outlets now. I got 3.5s, 4.5s, 3.5s, and 4s out there. Make sure you're shopping accordingly, getting the best possible pricing. 144.5 is the total. Marquette comes in this game as a very good basketball team. Connecticut, still a little bit left to be desired. Efficiency on offense, Marquette number 3. Hey, that's really good. You know who's better? It's Connecticut at number 1 in conference play. Take a look at the defenses. Marquette does have a better defense than UConn does. But let's take a look at where styles make fights here. Marquette doesn't turn the basketball over on offense, which is fantastic. That's what you love, specifically with going on the road. And Connecticut doesn't necessarily turn you over. And by the way, Connecticut does turn the basketball over themselves on offense against Marquette, who likes to force turnovers. That is an issue right off the bat. And if Connecticut can lessen the turnovers and not lose that battle by all that much, I think that's going to play a big difference in this game. But let's go over some other facts here. Marquette, 11th in conference play, getting to the free throw line. I don't know if they can take advantage of Connecticut, who does foul and play aggressive, if that's not really your MO. You know what your MO is for Marquette? The Golden Eagles, they're number 2 in conference play at volume from three-point range. 46% of their shots come from three-point range. They don't make a ton of them. 32.4%, which is 8th out of 11 teams. And quite frankly, Connecticut doesn't defend the three-point line fantastically. They're 9th out of 11, but what they do is frustrate you from the three-point line. Number 2 in conference play at chasing you off the line. So for me, a lot of times I look for, it's not really how the percentage mark is for the most part. I look at styles that make fights, because even a wide open shot from three-point range is certainly a long shot from a guarantee. But if you can frustrate an opponent on what they want to do and you stymie them from what they want to do, that usually goes hand in hand. Now, Connecticut's offense, number 1 versus number 2. That's going to be one to watch. And Marquette might have a slight advantage because they can turn the basketball over, and UConn doesn't protect the basketball as well as they should. But styles make fights in this one. Like, you're not pushing Connecticut around per se, right? They're 5th in conference play, getting to the free throw line. Marquette's defense is 6th and not letting you get there. There's no real advantage there, which is actually not so bad. The three-point line, they make their shots at 35% better than Marquette. Talking about Connecticut's offense. They don't rely on all that much. About midway in conference play and chasing you off the three-point line, Marquette doesn't really do that. They're 9th in play. So the three-point shot will be available. Can Connecticut knock it down? Usually lean towards a home team in that situation. Point distribution from inside the arc, which means 2-point shots. 6th in conference play is Connecticut at 49% of their offense coming from inside the arc, and then 49% roughly at giving points up inside the arc. And 5th in conference play defending is Marquette. So in this game, you do have Connecticut's defense stressing upon what Marquette wants to do and making that a focal point of the defense and a strength, chasing you off the three-point line. We don't have that on the opposite side when we're looking at Marquette's defense. Even though they're good across the board, you're not going to get UConn out of their own offense. They'll get to the free throw line some. They'll shoot some three-point shots out there. And certainly they will take their fair share. But also inside the arc, they're number 2 in conference play, close to 55% at conversion. And that bodes pretty well against Marquette. I think it's a good spot for UConn tonight, and that's the way I would go. 3.5s to 4.5s across the board. 2.5s were available a little bit earlier today. Now, looking at some other action across the board, and there's a lot of games to play out, and a lot of things later in this afternoon that I do have to look at. But sometimes I just find myself like going all the way down the board, and we do have odds here. The Lemoyne Dolphins taking on Central Connecticut, who I do believe that is the NEC, and yes, it is. The nation's longest active winning streak, that's Central Connecticut. The Blue Devils, how about that? Blue Devils down at Duke dominating. Central Connecticut Blue Devils dominating in the SEC. Last time they lost, January 12th at home to LIU. After that, have won every single ball game. And they're going to take on Lemoyne tonight. Now, when you look at Lemoyne, 354th ranking on Ken Palm. As bad as you could possibly get. Horrendous on defense. And you look at both of these teams in conference play. They're not extremely fast, but they're not slow by any stretch here. And Lemoyne's offense loves to shoot the three-point shot. Now, will they make them is the question, because Central Connecticut's got a very good defense, number 2 overall in conference play in efficiency. But why can't we get points in this game? Like, look at Central Connecticut's offense. Best in conference play versus number 9th ranked team in Lemoyne, which, again, there's only 9 teams in the NEC. They're terrible. Look at the three-point shots. They give up 40% from three-point range. Not volume of shots. Shot actual making, 40%. You take a look at a team with Central Connecticut that doesn't shoot a ton of three-point shots, makes about 33% as a team. That should be automatic tonight. They should be 35% without even opening up their eyes. But also this. Number 1 in conference play is Central Connecticut at scoring inside the arc. Now, you might say that, let's just say Lemoyne is decent at 8th overall at defending inside, which means that point distribution. But this just seems like a runaway freight train type of game. 13.5. Might be worth a shot there. Look at that. Say, hey, hon, who you betting tonight? Looking forward to that Central Connecticut Lemoyne Dolphins game. How about that one? But that should be a smoke. But as I told you, sometimes most people are just dead hunting the biggest games of the night, which we love to get into because you guys love to bet those. The Florida Alabamas, the Michigan Marylands, Mississippi Tennessee, if you want that one. UConn Marquette, we just went over. But I look at the bottom of that card sometimes and be able to just find absolute bangers on teams that should get wasted. And a lot of these are tournament games tonight. Like the NEC, that's a tournament game. Also, LIU and Chicago State. St. Francis and Wagner tonight. I always want to say Wagner now. Like Mo Wagner ruined us. Like when I see Wagner out there, it should always be Wagner. And it should be Mo Wagner, but it's Wagner. So it sort of creeps in and gets into my head at that point here. But it is what it is. We got one more segment to go. I'm loving college basketball. Hopefully you guys are as well. A little NBA talk next. Why not? Do it.
This is the place. This is where you'll get expert perspectives and sports gaming strategies 24/7.
And it's free.
Beat that, you cheap. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The new SportsGrid app is now available on iOS and the App Store. Experience the ultimate sports betting companion that provides personalized content from your favorite hosts. In-depth matchup previews, game and prop picks, live odds, stats, scores, and more. All in one place. And of course, on the SportsGrid app, you can tune into our live television and radio coverage anytime. On the go, wherever you are. Download the SportsGrid app on the iOS App Store now. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Imagine combining the exciting investment opportunity of cryptocurrencies with the power of artificial intelligence to maximize your IRA, 401k, or other investment funds. Listen, if you're looking for ways to accelerate your retirement growth, Block Trust IRA has market-leading strategies and solutions for all levels of investors, from $1,000 to millions. And they partner with Bitcoin Magazine's #1 crypto trading fund in the world to maximize your returns. Plus, their team of IRA specialists is here to help you roll over your IRA or qualified retirement account to the new world of cryptocurrency investments. So make this free call right now to set up your account and learn more.
800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. That's 800-434-5313.
Game time decisions.
The Giants and Raiders won't be making any mistakes. Oh, really? Are you sure? Because one team looks like they're going to sign the most toxic player in the entire league, and the other team's going to give Sam Darnold $45 million. I don't know. Maybe Matty Staff in the black and silver would have been a nice move instead of paying Sam Darnold franchise quarterback money.
It's Game Time Decisions with Kevin Walsh and crew. Weekdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific on the SportsGrid Radio Network. Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
What's your favorite part of the tournament, people? Is it opening weekend? Is it that Thursday, Friday? Wall-to-wall games, but not the biggest games across the board. Your bracket usually goes up in flames sometime around late afternoon on that Thursday with major upsets. Is it the Friday where it's like, okay, now we start to get better? The Saturday, Sunday, which starts to get better? Is it the Sweet 16, the final week, the Elite 8, the Final Four, the championship game? Like, what is it? Like, I enjoyed all the way through. But I love college basketball, college championship tournament weeks, which start this week. Some of the lower level teams that you're watching right now, the big boys, as I continue to say, get underway next week. That's fun because it's like the trial before the actual, storm hits. You get day-based basketball next week. Teams trying to make a run from a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We even talked about the Sun Belt yesterday. Did you know that conference, if you are the final seed, I think it was like Coastal Carolina, you have to win 7 straight basketball games in 7 straight days to make the March Madness tournament, if you will. Now, they're not going to. But what kind of ludicrous setup is that? Which it's diabolical, and I love it. I do. I love the fact. I would love to see one of those teams run on a 3 or 4 game win streak and really test him. Like, man, we just played 5 straight days and picked up 5 straight victories. That would be fun. Let's talk NBA action right now. Let's see, 3, 6, 8 games on the card tonight. Some interesting lines, no doubt about it, throughout. The haves and the have-nots are starting to show up, which includes the Miami Heat and the Cleveland Cavaliers. -12 is the Cavs at home. Cavs also on a back-to-back. Doesn't matter, it seems like. You pencil them in, as I say, every night for 125+. Their offense is astoundingly good. The Miami Heat, who's going to show up tonight, by the way? Getting 12 points. Rested. Is Hero going to play? Duncan Robinson? Bam Adebayo? Is everybody showing up? I do think that is a legitimate chance to go over the 222 because the Heat, because the Cavaliers are so darn good that I think they can get that done. Timberwolves, Charlotte, not really much response in that game. Celtics, Trailblazers, not really into that. Another game with a high number. The Oklahoma City Thunder, favored by 8 points to 7.5 points, depending where we're shopping, against the Memphis Grizzlies. Talked about it a little bit on the morning show. Let's call it 7.5 now. That is a high line, which I was buying into this morning. We'll see who some of the final numbers come out in this game because 250.5 is the current number for the total in that Grizzlies Thunder game. Extremely high. Both teams can actually score. In love with it? No. But I still would back the Thunder. I think they're the best team in basketball. Even though the Grizzlies, a top 2-3 seed in the West and at home, still catch it over a touchdown is kind of wacky. The Sacramento Kings and the Denver Nuggets, one of the more interesting lines. That's 5.5. No Sabonis for the Kings, but still a talented roster, no doubt. But Denver also at home after getting beat over the weekend by the Boston Celtics, so they should be rested. Looking at the report tonight, though, Aaron Gordon listed as questionable with an ankle. We'll see if he goes. Obviously, Nikola Jokic expected to go tonight, but that line is interesting. And also taking a look at the ticket count in that one. 73 to 74% coming back here for the Denver Nuggets. That line opened up at 6.5, now sits at 5.5. Are we led to believe maybe something else on the horizon? Like if Gordon sits out, that's going to hurt them, no doubt. But how about Jokic? I know he's listed, sometimes that knee, like for rest, but they've been off since this past weekend. It's Wednesday night, and they're at home. And you always have the advantage when you are used to playing in elevation, not the team that you're playing against. The Dallas Mavericks all but dead at this point, getting double digits on the road from the Milwaukee Bucks. Just trying to check the injury report here. Kevin Porter, that doesn't really make too big of a difference. Caleb Martin still questionable for his side of it, but that team is a walking injury at this point. 87% of the tickets coming in on the Milwaukee Bucks, despite being a double-digit favorite in this game. Another one out on the West Coast, which, always joking about the Phoenix Suns. How did you blow a game against the Suns where you're up 20-plus points late in the third quarter? That's what the Clippers are doing. They've been horrendous after the All-Star break. They're going to be resting guys tonight, which is why the Detroit Pistons have opened up as a 2-point favorite, now sit at 4.5 across the board, and it makes some sense. It really does. Who's going to show up? Is Kawhi Leonard going to play tonight on the back-to-back? Is James Harden going to show up tonight on the back-to-back? Norm Powell, we already know, is out at this point with the hamstring injury, which is devastatingly bad news. Isaiah Stewart listed there as questionable with the back. We'll see if he goes. But that's just a basketball team in the Detroit Pistons finding their way around the NBA and maybe enough to win a playoff round once they get there. But I'm buying that line move. I think the Pistons can beat the Clippers by 5+ points tonight. I do. The Clippers aren't all there, and let's just say Kawhi Leonard is down. Why not be the Pistons tonight, pulling out that victory? It is what it is. Thanks for tuning in on a Wednesday afternoon edition of Moneyline. For JP behind the wheels of steel, I'm Donnie Rightside. See you tomorrow.
It's easy to get SportsGrid almost anywhere with our mobile app.
So give us a break.
We're not going to tap your screen for you. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
And 30 named the NFL's Offensive Player of the Year. Edge rusher Max Crosby is hoping that Aaron Rodgers will join the Las Vegas Raiders. The Jets announced on February the 13th that they plan to part ways with him after 2 seasons. The Raiders have lacked consistency at quarterback. They started 3 different passers in 2024 en route to going 4-13. The Vikings won't franchise tag quarterback Sam Darnold. The team wants to continue to work towards a deal that's suitable for both parties. The Jets have released wide receiver Devontae Adams, who was acquired in October from the Raiders for a 3rd-round pick. Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
One of life's greatest mysteries has finally been solved.
Who let the dogs out?
It's Spruce, the new hard-working, worry-free weed and grass killer that's safe for use around people and pets. When used as directed, spray the leaves for visible results in just 1 hour and dead weeds in just 1 day. You spray, they play. Weeds die by the next day. Find Spruce wherever weed killers are sold.
What was that?
That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud Phone System. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very
calm. I am. Ooma has everything I need to handle the busy holiday season, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business comm at ooma.com/radio.
How many SportsGrid listeners does it take to change a light bulb?
It takes 2.
1 to change the light bulb.
And 1 to see if our mobile app can provide the same amount of light.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on a Wednesday on Football Full Circle. It is FFC, all a part of the SportsGrid Radio Network and Sirius XM Channel 159. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. It is the day following tag deadline day around the National Football League. Not all that active during that franchise tag window around the NFL, but anytime there is a deadline, there are more moves and maneuvers to be had and headlines to be shared. We will do that on this Wednesday. Scott, officially 1 week away from the start of the 2025 NFL League year. That is 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 week from right now. So 1 week and 4 hours from this very moment, officially 2025 around the National Football League does begin. We've got the non-tampering negotiating window starting on Monday. The free agent class, who is out there, who is available after the tag deadline, all of that to be discussed on this Wednesday on FFC.
Yeah, NFL's got so many crazy dates, man. And then you got the June date where if you want to cut a guy, you cut him before June. Then it's more this year, you cut him after June. Well, what's so special about June that you would be able to make that for next year? But they got all these crazy dates. You wonder why 2025 would begin now. Wouldn't it begin, I don't know, the day after the Super Bowl since the season is officially over? Maybe give you guys a couple of days, maybe in a week or so. But yeah, the NFL's kind of quirky when it comes to some of these things.
The offseason calendar always has those days to know, and the NFL likes to make events out of all of it. Yesterday, Scott, the tag deadline at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And this year around the NFL, only 2 guys franchise tagged and nobody yesterday. For a second consecutive offseason, Cincinnati's T. Higgins under the franchise tag. If we take the Bengals at their word, we're always hesitant in doing that. They hope to reach a long-term extension with Higgins very, very soon. The other tagged player, the right guard for Kansas City, that would be Trey Smith. Both of those organizations making further moves and some more news around both franchises in the next couple of hours after that and what we have seen here on this Wednesday. But Scott, as for that tag deadline, only 2 guys placed under the franchise tag, the fewest we have seen around the NFL in more than 3 decades, since 1994, when the number was also 2. Last year, 9 guys placed under the franchise or transition tag. 8 agreed to a long-term extension. The only one who played under the tag was T. Higgins. But Scott, the franchise tag seemingly losing a little bit of value for those NFL clubs around the league.
Well, and you know why, Ben? Because the price of the franchise tag is going higher and higher. So, used to be kind of a fallout. It used to be, okay, I'll franchise you, and you're getting the benefit of the doubt as the team. But now these salaries are going through the roof, and it's like, okay, if I franchise you, that's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, it never was for the player, but, especially now with these salaries going through the roof. Not necessarily surprised with Cincinnati. And I think last year we had a lot more guys that were in there last year that, maybe this year. I don't know if there's any one or two guys that I was surprised didn't get franchised. I don't think there's as many this season as there was last year.
Yeah, and Scott, as we brought the news yesterday, toward the tail end of our hour up until 1 p.m. Eastern time, the Cowboys, who were planning on using the franchise tag on D tackle Osa Odighizuwa, would have used the tag if a long-term deal was not reached. It was yesterday afternoon, 4-year deal worth $80 million, $20 million on that annual average salary. Scott, one of the things I do find fascinating, and I think you highlighted there, because the NFL salary cap continues to increase and doing so drastically year after year, the price of the franchise tag to be placed on a player goes up. Players never all that thrilled to be placed under a franchise tag. There's no long-term stability. There's no fully guaranteed money. It used to benefit the franchises more because you could pay a perceived discounted rate based on the market value. But Scott, one of the issues now, as the salary cap continues to rise, you want that financial flexibility as a front office. And all of the money that you pay to a franchise tag player goes to your cap hit. The way that we see restructured deals and contracts now, you can pay guys up front with signing bonuses or guaranteed money up front, so the player is happier for a bigger payday, but it's actually a friendlier contract to the NFL team as a whole. There's really not that benefit as much anymore because of how lofty those franchise tag numbers have become.
Yeah, great point. That's it. You got to put all, for Cincinnati with $26 million with T. Higgins, you got to put all $26 million. You said you can't offset some of that stuff with the salary, with signing bonuses and different things, incentives, and all the other goofy ways you could offset the actual salary cap hit. So with the numbers going as high as they are, yeah, it does make it tougher. So maybe that's why you're getting less and less. But it is amazing. Obviously the salary cap is going higher, Ben, but still. There's some of these numbers, with Philadelphia kind of setting the market with Saquon Barkley yesterday. I mean, What's that going to do to all the other running backs? I'm sure I am absolutely knowing, especially Ben, that they had him under contract for another year. They didn't have to do this. I am sure every GM around the NFL is like, what are you doing, guys? What are you doing to us? Because every other running back is now going to be asking for more and more money.
It makes the Eagles look pretty good, right? A front office willing to pay, an owner willing to invest. They are always very shrewd in how they do things from that financial foresight. We'll talk Saquon, what that deal means, the reinvigoration, if you will, of the running back spot. It was just a few off seasons ago. We were talking about the depth of the position. Saquon Barkley, after a record-setting year, kind of helping out running backs all around the NFL. But, Scott, we mentioned the two franchises that did utilize the franchise tag. Kansas City on their guard, Trey Smith. Cincinnati for a second straight year on wideout, T. Higgins. Both of those teams in the news early on this Wednesday. Let's start with KC. They got to spend on Trey Smith in terms of the franchise tag, although trying to work, I am sure, to a long-term extension before the next deadline. That would be July 15th, when a club and a franchise tag player can still work to agree to a long-term deal. But because of that, Scott, and some investment up front for Kansas City, they part ways with AP first-team All-Pro and one of the best interior guards we have seen in the last decade in the NFL, Joe Thuney. The Chiefs have traded Joe Thuney to the Chicago Bears in return for a 2026 fourth-round pick. Now, Thuney is 32 years old, soon to turn 33, but Scott, the last 2 years, AP first-team All-Pro. Had to switch out to left tackle for the Chiefs this year because of injury concerns and poor play in that blindside blocker. Wasn't great and was exposed during Super Bowl 59 to the left tackle spot, but that's not an easy transition. The Chiefs send one of the best left guards to Chicago. In 24 hours, the Bears make 2 trades for interior O linemen now to protect their prized asset in Caleb Williams entering year 2.
Yeah, I got to tell you, for the Bears aspect, this has been a great week, right? I mean, No, you're not getting running backs and wide receivers and high-profile players, but if you're a Bears fan, if you're Caleb Williams, you got to be thrilled with the moves they made. From Kansas City side, Ben, this is like the prototypical NFL trade that I don't understand. I just don't. I mean, the guy, yes, he is 32, okay, which is a little long in the tooth in the NFL, but he's still been productive. If you read the stories and believe them, he's graded out as one of the best guards, offensive lineman in the NFL last year and 2 years ago. All right, you can't afford him. Even if you can't figure out a way to afford him. All right, that's one thing I find hard to believe. But two, then you get a lousy 4th-round draft choice, not even this year, next year. I mean, you basically gave the guy away, and I don't understand why some other team wouldn't have said, all right, I'll give you a 4th-round pick this year. I'll give you a 3rd-round pick this year. I mean, you get one of the better offensive linemen, and you're depleting, your offensive line, which wasn't great to begin with. I think you want to bolster that and help Patrick Mahomes, who was on the run all last season. Very weird.
Yeah, it was a weird move, Scott. And we'll talk about why the Chiefs probably tried to do it, freeing up some finances to pay others. They must believe they have some players on the roster under discounted rookie deals to fill that hole. We'll continue the conversation on Football Full Circle. Comes your way next.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid, and we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin.
He just gives that vibe.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. Police and a middle school in suburban New York are looking into how a student got a hold of marijuana gummies and gave them to about a dozen schoolmates, sending 11 of them to the hospital. The episode happened Monday at William Floyd Middle School on Long Island. The sickened students were 13 and 14 years old, according to Suffolk County Police. No criminal charges had been filed as of Tuesday. It wasn't immediately clear whether any students will face discipline. Kroger announced on Monday that CEO Rodney McMullen has resigned after a board of investigation of his personal conduct. Lead director Ronald Sargent has been appointed interim CEO effective immediately. Kroger said McMullen's conduct was, quote, unrelated to the business, but was inconsistent with Kroger's policy on business ethics. Kroger said that last month the board was made aware of certain personal conduct by McMullen and immediately hired an outside attorney to conduct an investigation. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
With Progressive, renters can save on protection for the things that make your place yours, even things that don't make sense to everyone.
People always wonder why I don't get rid of my guitar since I never play. But it's like, what if I actually end up taking lessons? Sure, I've had it for 8 years, but if I get rid of it, then what will my New Year's resolution be next January?
Exactly. So bundle your renters and auto and save with Progressive and protect the things that make sense to you. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates and other insurers not available in all states or situations. Covered subject to policy terms and conditions.
There's something you should know and always remember.
SportsGrid does not increase luck.
We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck,
go find a horseshoe.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
So in the last 24 hours, 2 trades by the Chicago Bears to bolster up the interior of their O-line. The point of emphasis for Chicago under new head coach Ben Johnson, protect the second-year QB in Caleb Williams. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But Scott, Kansas City trading Joe Thuney away to Chicago today. Thuney, who is highly regarded as one of the best left guards in all of football. 2 straight years as an AP first-team All-Pro at that left guard spot for Kansas City. 3 years consecutively as a Pro Bowler, 4 seasons in KC as a whole. Has played at least 15 games in all 9 of his seasons in the NFL. The first 5 he spent as a Patriot. But Scott, you brought this point up before the break. Why is Kansas City doing this? And I think it is really sound. Joe Thuney was a name that some might remember from Super Bowl Sunday because he was not looking great against a fearsome pass rush for Philadelphia. But at the left tackle spot, where he became a necessity, flexing out there and even being able to do that, Scott, from left guard to left tackle might not sound like a lot. It truly is. But on the inside, one of the best guards in football, 32 years old. Again, incredibly consistent despite being a 9-year NFL vet, especially when you only get back a 4th rounder. But Scott, that's just kind of the price of trading away a veteran. I'm a little bit surprised because you thought the point of emphasis for KC was build up the O-line around the interior. That is really solid. Joe Thuney back to left guard. Creed Humphrey as the center and Trey Smith now under the franchise tag at the right guard spot, and then figure out the tackles. The Chiefs decide to trade Thuney, freeing up some cap space, some financial freedom this offseason, and maybe believing they've got a younger guy on the roster who they like just as much.
I guess that, or, for you guys that like to bet the draft, man, you got to circle offensive lineman for sure for Kansas City, right? I mean, if they're going to be willing to do this, it's kind of like, fans are the same way. Maybe the team is falling into the same trap, right? They're not the new toy under the Christmas tree. We're all kind of expecting Super Bowl or bust. And did they look awful in the Super Bowl? Yeah, that they sure did, right? You couldn't play any worse. Completely manhandled by Philadelphia. But it is the Super Bowl, Ben. They did win last year. They did win 2 years ago. Okay, you didn't win the Super Bowl this year, but it's not like they're chump change where they got to tear the whole thing down and start all over again. I mean, if Kelsey's coming back and he says he is, I just as soon have Thuney than I would Kelsey. I think Kelsey, from what we saw in the Super Bowl, Thuney might not have been great, but Kelsey, boy, you look at some of the clips on YouTube and Twitter that they're sending out. He was just, I don't know what was up with him on the Super Bowl. But the point is, I don't think you need to tear the thing down and like start all over again. You got 2 wide receivers that are on rookie contracts or first-year contracts, right? I mean, so you're not spending the money there. You got Mahomes taking a little bit of a discount. I mean, I know you're paying some guys Chris Jones. You can't pay everybody. I get that, but if the guy's only going to make $15 million, he was voted the team's MVP 2 years ago. To give you an idea, like how much he means in that locker room, he was voted the team's MVP by his peers. I don't know. It just seems weird. And again, then you throw on the top, you're only getting a 4th-round pick. Right? And let's see who that 4th-round pick is. No, oh, by the way, again, next season, not this year's draft, but next year's draft. Is that really? You're telling me really that's equal value? I just assume keep him.
5-year deal worth $80 million is what Joe Thuney signed for back in the offseason of 2021, leaving New England and coming to Kansas City. Scott, it did not seem like a very large deal and still is not for one of the best. Again, a 2-time consecutive AP first-team All-Pro in 2022, AP second-team All-Pro, still delivering at a very high level. There is some thought the Chiefs' first-round pick of this past year out of BYU, Kingsley Suamataia, who is a big guy but wasn't great at left tackle, is going to shift inside. Maybe that's how you do it. And frankly, when you have a lot of people to pay, some of those outstanding contracts that don't even seem to be that franchise non-friendly just have to be shipped away, which I think is the thought for Brett Veach. You're a really good front office. When you pay people up front, you have financial flexibility, but namely, Scott, you draft well, and you can take advantage of those discounted rookie deals. So we'll see how Kansas City does that. And to your point, Scott, no doubt about it, number 31 overall, I think the Chiefs are trying to have that be an offensive lineman. Name to know, Josh Connerly Jr., offensive tackle out of Oregon. Xavier Worthy, by the way, first-round pick this year, but Kingsley Suamataia, I believe, second or third-round pick for the Chiefs. So early rounder there along the offensive line. So that's why I think they're doing it, Scott. We'll see if it pays off for the Chiefs. It will, we believe, should pay off for the Bears, who acquired Jonah Jackson yesterday from L.A. in only exchange for a 6th-rounder. He was a previous Pro Bowler in Detroit under Ben Johnson, and we have spoken about the accolades of Joe Thuney here. We knew it would be a point of emphasis for the Bears. building up the O-line, protecting Caleb Williams, entering year 2, because in his rookie campaign, Scott, Williams was sacked 68 times. No individual, no single quarterback around the NFL was sacked more than 52 times in 2024. Caleb Williams, 16 more times than that. So clearly a huge point of emphasis from Ben Johnson hitting the ground running.
Yeah, and you got 3 offensive linemen that are free agents as well. That's called addition by subtraction in my world. So they have some holes to fill, and they're filling those holes up. Some of those, watching the Bears game, some of them definitely were on Caleb Williams, but still, that's a lot of sacks. It really is. I tell you, Ben, it never ceases to amaze me also with these draft choices. These GMs, like they treat these things like absolute gold this time of year, right? I got a 2-time All-Pro, still has life on his shelf, and I'm not going to give you a 1. Forget a 1, 2, forget a 3. I'll give you a 4, maybe, right? But then come draft day, when these teams want to move up like a couple of slots, man, they throw these 4th and 5th round draft choices around like they're no big deal. Oh, yeah, I'll throw you a 4th. I want to move up 2 spots. Whatever. Who cares? Go ahead, take it. I want to move up 2 spots to get my guy because I think you're going to take him. So it's just kind of funny. Now they're treated like gold, but come draft day, it's like, whatever. Yeah, go take a couple of more picks so I can move up.
Yeah, absolutely so, Scott. Really well said. The Bears building up that O-line to protect Caleb Williams. Another really good O-line in Philadelphia, who plowed forward for Saquon Barkley this year, having a record-setting season. We'll talk about Barkley's big deal in Philly up next on FFC.
There's smart.
And there's not smart.
Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Keep it here.
And win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
In 1966, player reps elect Marvin Miller as executive director of the Major League Baseball Players Association. In 1968, Miller created a collective bargaining agreement, but its biggest impact was the birth of free agency, opening the door for million-dollar contracts like Catfish Hunter in 1974.
To be a Yankee is a thrill. I always wanted to be here in New York and play.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
The University of Copenhagen's new AI machine learning model can understand the emotional state of animals just by listening to them. With 89.4% accuracy, it acoustically distinguishes positive and negative emotions from 7 different species, including cows,
it's a beautiful day,
pigs,
stop stealing my slop,
and even wild boars.
Have you ever had one of those days?
This breakthrough universal animal emotion translator, a game changer for barnyard quality of life.
You're standing on my foot.
Follow me at G Capalbo on X and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast.
The St. John's Red Storm at 9. Don't give me that funny face, Mike.
I'm trying to figure out where you're going with this.
Well, where I'm going is that I think that Duke, Houston, Tennessee, and for me, St. John's are the 4 best defensive teams in America. I want to know how in God's name they could possibly be 9 on yours.
It's Pharrell Coast to Coast with Scott Farrell. Weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. On the home of the winning edge. The SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go,
there you are.
Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge
anywhere. Even while the wife's talking to you.
If you've got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
After a record-setting season and a Lombardi Trophy to boot, Saquon Barkley has been paid again after only 1 year in Philadelphia. Saquon Barkley and the Eagles agreeing to a 2-year, $41.2 million extension already. That was agreed to yesterday. Scott, just 1 year into his original 3-year, $38 million deal, upwards of 46 plus in terms of incentives that he signed last offseason, leaving the Giants, going to the NFC East foes in Philadelphia. So only 1 year into the original contract, an extension on top of it that makes Saquon Barkley the richest running back in NFL history. The only running back to receive $20+ billion in terms of annual average salary. You set records, you get paid. That is what Howie Roseman has told Saquon Barkley in Philly.
Yeah, kind of weird. On the same day they released Darius Slay. Maybe that's not because of salary, but I'm sure that played a part, right? Then you go ahead and you turn around, you give a running back a new contract that you didn't have to. The question for me would be why? You just want to be Mr. Nice Guy? Is that it? I guess. I try not to run my business that way. You could do that to a certain extent. You got 2 years left on your deal. Again, as we said before, Ben, there's every GM in the world, every agent in the world is thrilled with this. Every GM is upset with this because now every agent is going to go to their guys and say, listen, all right, Philadelphia did it, so how about give my guy more money, whether it's a running back, a wide receiver, whoever it is, right? And, Cincinnati, we know that with Jamar Chase, he's been holding on for 2 years looking for a new deal. All right, you want to reward the guy, you want a Super Bowl, you want to get giddy. Is he worth it? $20 million? That's the running back position. It's not that he's not good. It's will the backup do 2/3 of what he's doing? That's the problem with the running back position. It's not that these guys aren't important for the club and they're not any good. It's that there are so many guys that could do the same thing, basically the same level, that we don't need to give you 10, 15, now $20 million. When we can give a first, second, third year running back $2, $3, $4 million. So, but listen, kudos to the Eagles. They won. It's weird. They got a big-time quarterback who's on a big-time contract. They got a big-time wide receiver who's on a big-time contract, and now they got a big-time running back. And they're paying a lot of guys on defense. So it's amazing how some teams find a way to get it done, other teams don't.
Devontae Smith paid as well. A lot of guys on the offensive line. Scott, to your point, Howie Roseman, the front office exec, the GM for Philadelphia, is kind of looked at as the superstar in the industry right now because Philly has taken care of their own and has paid a ton of people. Some don't always hit, right? Big deal for Bryce Huff this past offseason. Healthy all year. A scratch in Super Bowl 59, and yet they still found some gems like a Zach Bond on a 1-year deal to have immediate dividends. And they draft incredibly well on the defensive side of the ball. Key contributors like Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean and Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, all on their discounted rookie deals. When their tabs are up, then it becomes a little bit more difficult to pay everybody on the offensive side of the ball as well. But one of the reasons that Howie Roseman does this, and one of the reasons that forward-thinking franchises and front offices should do something of the sort, is because you can balance it out over the long duration now of 4 more years for Saquon Barkley under contract. Depending on how the actual deal is structured, we're not entirely sure what the actual litigation looks like, but it could be a lot of signing bonuses up front. It could be a lot of guaranteed money up front. So the cap hit of even the most expensive running back in NFL history is not nearly as drastic as you might believe, as the casual NFL fan might think. But Scott, in terms of Saquon's performance this year, when you have 2,504 rushing yards, the most we have ever seen in NFL history, regular plus postseason, that's when you get the reward. And Saquon Barkley signing the deal in the offseason to come to Philadelphia led to Josh Jacobs getting paid and Derrick Henry getting paid and others getting paid. Saquon Barkley, and thus his performance backing it up, is speaking volumes for running backs around the NFL. What was once seemingly a forgotten position, now the contracts are starting to flow a little bit.
Yeah. And I wonder, Ben, looking back, remember he didn't play the last game of the regular season when he could have set the record, and I think he would have, right? I think they would have made a point of setting the record. It was a meaningless game for them. I just wonder if the Eagles said, you know what, I appreciate that. You took one for the team. You looked out better for the team, so we'll reward you in the end.
And Saquon said all year his main goal was to play in a Super Bowl. He had never to win a Super Bowl, and he had never. And now he has 101 yards shy of Eric Dickerson's record for the most rushing yards in a regular season. More NFL news and notes coming your way up next on FFC.
The winning edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. Men's College Hoops Conference Tournament action on Tuesday in the first round of the Patriot League Championship. Loyola, Maryland beat Lehigh 77-73. Lafayette over Holy Cross 69-68. And the Horizon, Oakland beat Green Bay 96-72. Northern Kentucky over Detroit Mercy 99-75. Wright State over IU Indianapolis 98-85. And the Sun Belt Southern Miss beat Coastal Carolina 66-63. In overtime, Louisiana beat Louisiana Monroe 73-69. Men's top 25 last night. Big upset as number 22 Texas A&M beat Auburn 83-72. The number 1 Tigers dropped to 15-2 in the SEC. In overtime, Texas beat number 25 Mississippi State 87-82. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter?
Right? And the best part, they accept Discover.
Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right, so we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
I had the worst dream last night. You were in a car crash and the kids and I were on our own. We had to move out of the house because I couldn't afford it anymore.
That's awful, hon.
My brother was saying he got life insurance from Ethos. With Ethos, it only took 10 minutes and he got $2 million in coverage for around $2 a day. It's all online. No medical exam. He just answered a few health questions right from his house.
Ethos, here we come.
Visit GetEthos.com. That's GetEthos.com.
Sample rate is a 10-year term life policy for 35-year-old healthy, non-smoking male. Billed monthly.
You're listening to SportsGrid.
Spreading the winning edge far and wide.
Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app.
Face it.
The winning edge is everywhere.
Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. Scott, some more news out of Cincinnati early on this Wednesday. 1 week away from the start of the official league year. That comes next Wednesday. Sam Hubbard, at the age of 29 years old, a staple of Cincy's defensive line the last 5, 6, 7 years, has announced his retirement from football. Sam Hubbard, who is a Cincinnati kid, grew up in Cincinnati, played high school football in Cincinnati, played his college football at Ohio State in Columbus, spent the entirety of his 7-year NFL career with the Bengals, is now walking away from the sport. The Cincinnati kid bows out one final time. The Bengals will be without his services in 2025. And of course, Scott, not exactly cause for concern, but Cincy, who was atrocious on defense last year, has a lot of spots to fill on that side of the ball now entering 2025.
Yeah, you just wonder where this Bengals team is going, right? They're at the proverbial fork in the road. You got Jamar Chase entering the last year of his contract. You got T. Higgins franchise. Let's just say even if let's say they keep him, but still they haven't showed any inclination to give him a long-term deal, so he's going to be gone after this upcoming season. Chase is at the point where I think if I'm Jamar Chase, I'm saying, you know what? Forget it. I'll just play out this year and I'll leave as a free agent and I'll get gazillions of dollars. And that leaves Joey B. So it's kind of like, where's this? Do you re-sign Chase? Do you re-sign Higgins? Do you reload? That's what I would do, but it's the Cincinnati Bungles, as we like to call them. So this is kind of a difficult, in a very difficult division, right? They should be challenging for Super Bowls. Instead, they're screwing around with things, and I just wonder if that played a role in this.
Yeah, you do wonder, right? In a defense that really needs to get a lot better now in Cincinnati. Lou Anarumo no longer there. Trey Hendrickson, who led the NFL in sacks this past year, finished runner-up in Defensive Player of the Year voting. He's looking for a new deal. He has the support of his QB in Joe Burrow. One of their defensive captains, team's leading tackler this past year, who also has spent all 6 years in Cincy, Jermaine Pratt at the linebacker spot, not pleased with the front office, wants a new deal or a trade. There are so many question marks, Scott, for Cincinnati. And the Bengals, as we shared, one of two teams to utilize the franchise tag in this window that did finalize yesterday. Of course, a second consecutive year placing that tag on T. Higgins. There are so many outstanding debts, if you will, so many tabs left to be paid for the Bengals. Can they do it all? Can they have the financial flexibility to do it all this offseason? They say they are going to, but they've said a lot of things about retaining the best talent in the past 5 years that hasn't necessarily resulted in such. And Scott, we just talked about Howie Roseman, right? Looked at as a very shrewd financial wizard as a GM, and he pays Saquon Barkley an extension just 1 year into his original 3-season deal. And it's like, huh? That's an interesting move. But one of the reasons that teams do that is to free up the finances all throughout so that you do not have 3 of your priority guys, 3 of your main talents on both sides of the ball, all asking for a pay raise at the same exact time, because then it becomes very difficult to make sure you pay everybody.
Yeah, I mean, really, listen, I'm a big believer in there's a will, there's a way, right? If you want to get it done, you can, but you got to pay 3 guys. You got to pay Chase, you got to pay Higgins, you got to pay Hendrickson. You know, where are you going to go? And you had all those guys last year, and obviously that still wasn't enough to even to get into the postseason, let alone win a Super Bowl. So it's not just maintaining what you have if you're a Cincinnati guy. You got to get better players. You got to hit the free agent market and go get more players. Are they willing to do that? That's what I mean. If I'm these guys and I don't see additions being made, I'm like, you know what? I'll just suck it up for 1 more year. I'm both, Chase and Higgins, both young enough. You hit the open market next year. They're both get $1 gazillion. I'm not big bet on paying guys when they have 2 years left on their deal. But, in certain cases, it does prove to be prudent. And with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, as every year goes by, the salary cap is going higher and higher, and the price to play is, to pay players is just going through the roof. They didn't save anything by not giving Chase a new contract last year or Higgins. It's only getting more and more expensive.
They cost themselves money, Scott, because Cincinnati has been steadfast in the idea they are going to reset the non-quarterback market for the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. When we were having these conversations at the same exact juncture last year for Jamar Chase entering the 4th year of his NFL career with still 2 more years left on his rookie discounted deal, the Bengals could have reset the non-quarterback market then, not waited to see Minnesota pay Justin Jefferson $35 million a year with $110 million guaranteed, and then have to play catch-up the following offseason. And now if you are resetting the market again or making Jamar Chase the highest paid non-QB ever, you got to match at bare minimum what Minnesota did and now have a pay raise for Jamar Chase. And you're doing that at the same time. You're essentially negotiating against yourselves because T. Higgins is going to be like, you guys see what you're paying him? $36 million a year? And you're telling me I'm only worth 28, 30 mil? No, I think I'm right there, right behind Jamar Chase. You need me. We both went out there and proved we are 2 of the best wide receivers in this sport. Where's my $32, $33 million with where the salary cap is going? And that's why, Scott, it becomes incredibly difficult for the Bengals to have all of these conversations and negotiations at the same time.
Yeah. And would you want to franchise Chase next season? I mean, again, this season, not too bad, but, with all these players getting more and more money, that's going to cost you $35, $40 million almost for a franchise tag, depending on what other guys get, right? So it's a weird, awful situation. They should have gotten it done last year. They should get it done this year. And like I said, if I'm Chase at this point, and if you're Cincinnati, Ben, right? I mean, would you ever consider trading him? Because you know what his numbers are. You should know by now, I'm not paying you $40 million a year or 35 or whatever he's asking. That number's not going to come down. So if you're Cincinnati, do you make the tough choice of, all right, if we're not going to pay him, then why don't we just trade him and start all over again?
And Scott, we got the reports that the conversations have already started between the Bengals front office and Jamar Chase's representation. By the way, they also represent T. Higgins, same agent for Chase and Higgins, and that they are hoping to make Jamar Chase the highest paid non-quarterback ever, and yet they still have a lot of ground to make up between what both sides are thinking. And this is all for a Bengals team at 18-1 that is expected to be an AFC frontrunner once again. 4th best price, well behind Buffalo, who has the 3rd best number at 8-1, Baltimore, second best price at plus 700. And the Chiefs, the favorites out of the AFC at plus 650. Scott, you would think, bare minimum, you need all these guys back, but then you also have to have some money left over to pay some contributors on the defensive side of the football, so that side can be better. The offense was never in question in 2024. It was solely the defense not stepping up, even holding teams under 24 points, let alone 14. New DC in Cincinnati, former defensive coordinator at Miami and Notre Dame. That would be Al Golden. He now takes the reins in Cincy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just weird. I find it funny they say they're now talking. Look, they've been talking for 2 years. That's what I mean by Chase's numbers. They're not getting any lower. What's he asking for? 50 million, 45 million? Just figure out what, is going to make him the highest paid player and say, all right, here you go. I mean, it's not that I'm like asking Cincinnati to give up in the negotiations, but you know what he's asking for. You know what he's going to get on the open market. You know what's going to cost you to franchise him next year. Just have at least one of these dominoes be settled. Maybe you don't bring back T. Higgins. Maybe he's the one that you got to say, all right, listen, we're just going to have to do better in the draft. We're just going to have to be able to replace some of these guys, and Higgins would be the one. But I wouldn't let Chase walk.
No.
He would be the one.
Neither would I. And Scott, he wasn't pleased without having that contract extension last offseason and then spurned by it perhaps as a Triple Crown season, leading the NFL in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. So T. Higgins was tagged. Another wide receiver was let go yesterday in Devontae Adams. Let's look at the free agent class around the NFL as that's about to start next.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie.
Just saying.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. Police and a middle school in suburban New York are looking into how a student got a hold of marijuana gummies and gave them to about a dozen schoolmates, sending 11 of them to the hospital. The episode happened Monday at William Floyd Middle School on Long Island. The sickened students were 13 and 14 years old, according to Suffolk County Police. No criminal charges had been filed as of Tuesday. It wasn't immediately clear whether any students will face discipline. Kroger announced on Monday that CEO Rodney McMullen has resigned after a board of investigation of his personal conduct. Lead director Ronald Sargent has been appointed interim CEO effective immediately. Kroger said McMullen's conduct was, quote, unrelated to the business, but was inconsistent with Kroger's policy on business ethics. Kroger said that last month the board was made aware of certain personal conduct by McMullen and immediately hired an outside attorney to conduct an investigation. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
At Skechers, we put the S in comfort.
Wait. Skechers put the S in comfort?
Yes, comfort you have to feel to believe. Skechers, we put the S in comfort.
Let me try. Okay, I'm just stepping in and... Oh, wow. Skechers put the S in comfort.
Duh, we told you.
Find Skechers slip-ins at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
What was that?
That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud Phone System. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very...
Calm? I am. Ooma has everything I need to handle the busy holiday season, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business comm at ooma.com/radio.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important.
That's where we come in.
SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning
more often.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
So the franchise tag deadline has come and passed. Only two guys placed under the franchise tag. Trey Smith in Kansas City, T. Higgins in Cincinnati. Scott, if there were any eligible franchise tag candidates around a bunch of rosters, nobody really was placed under the tag, freeing up potentially a lot of free agents to test the waters. The non-tampering legal negotiating window starts on Monday. If non-tampering is even still a thing in the National Football League. The official league year begins exactly 1 week from today. But for the free agents out there, if you see a contract or a deal from insert X NFL Insider, most of that happens on Monday, some on Tuesday, made official on Wednesday afternoon. And Scott, let's start with a couple of wide receivers, perhaps. Chris Godwin, as we expected for the Buccaneers, who has spent all of his career in Tampa, coming off yet another, sadly, devastating injury this past season. And a guy who was released yesterday, as we anticipated, but might still have some left in the tank. That would be Davante Adams. After only 11 games in New York, the Jets and Adams parting ways. Probably two of the top guys in the wide receiver market, with T. Higgins under the tag for Cincy, that are free agents available right now.
Yeah, I'm surprised about Adams. Not unexpected, like surprise, but just surprised that they would do that, Ben. I know he had a monster cap hit and a monster salary for this upcoming season, but that's under the assumption he was going to play out this year and then walk. Why wouldn't you re-sign the guy? You know, again, where there's a will, there's a way. You know, rip up the last year or just add on a 2 or 3 year contract. This way his cap hit and everything else isn't that severe. I mean, he was productive last year for the Jets. It took him a few games to get going. But in the end, whether it was because he was Aaron Rodgers' guy or because he was just really good, I would think you would want him. But this new regime with the Jets have shown that anybody that had anything to do with the last regime that was a name value, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Davante Adams or whoever, it's like, you know what, don't let the door hit you in the ass. You know, I can appreciate that. But, you know, sometimes you got to take a step back and say, you know, that's kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face. Davante Adams is still a pretty good player. I would find a way to keep him on my football team.
Yeah, it is interesting, Scott. I agree. But with no guaranteed money left beyond this year, it did seem as though it would make sense for that parting of ways between the Jets and Davante Adams. But that's the really interesting component. Davante Adams is 32 years old, right? He is no young buck anymore in the NFL. But he is still producing at a very high level, leaving Green Bay, forcing his way to Las Vegas to be with his college buddy in Derek Carr. Carr is sent packing at the end of 2022 by Vegas. He gets to New Orleans. Davante remains in Las Vegas for 2023. All of it, and still had a Pro Bowl year. Scott, even this year, only 14 games in total. 3 in Sin City with the Raiders, 11 in New York. More than 850 receiving yards as a Jet, 7 receiving touchdowns in total. Again, in only 14 games, 1,000 receiving yards. Davante Adams has had 5 consecutive 1,000-yard receiving seasons. And at the end of his time with the Packers, even that first year as an AP first-team All-Pro in Las Vegas that was tumultuous, most of it with Derek Carr, but at the end, of course, without and the drama that ensued, Davante Adams was regarded as one of, if not the best, wide receiver in the NFL. And 2 years later, not thought of nearly in the same vein, but still putting up 1,000 yards. So, Scott, for me, Davante Adams is the top wide receiver in free agency. It will be interesting to see the suitors available for Adams. And knowing Davante has been a little bit strong-headed about where he wants to play and with what quarterback, where exactly Davante Adams wants to go this offseason.
Yeah, you know, and I'll throw out that I've heard some Jet fans say, all right, we'll make the decision to get rid of him, but we couldn't have traded him. No one wanted him, you know, even though the contract was kind of backloaded for this year. But again, I would think there would have been a team that said, okay, we'll take him because Davante, we're going to talk to you and we're going to give you a new contract and here's what we're going to give you. Versus just, you know, sometimes when you have that, okay, no more money is guaranteed in front of you, Ben, it makes you lose foresight on, okay, it might not be guaranteed, but we still want the guy. You know, all right, we're going to make the choice of paying him, even though we don't have to. So I don't know why. To me, I would have kept him. I would have reworked the contract if he couldn't fit in cap-wise. I think he's a good addition. Now, maybe there was too much turmoil with him and Rodgers from last year, and that was going to continue on this season. I don't know, but you know, you don't generally win football games when you let go of Davante Adams. But I will say that his career has been kind of weird, though, right? As far as following Rodgers and the Raiders and then Derek Carr, and nothing seems to work out for the poor guy.
He has been very specific about who he wants throwing him the football, and he has forced his way out of a couple of spots to be with those two guys. Now, we know Derek Carr is remaining in New Orleans, at least for this upcoming year. Does Davante Adams try to get there? Do the Saints have nearly enough money to make that move? Probably not. They're in cap purgatory at this moment. Where does Aaron Rodgers end up? Does Davante Adams want to follow suit? But, Scott, when you think of a couple of teams in need of a big-time wide receiver, in fact, the Packers might make some sense, although I don't think that's going to be a happy matrimony welcoming Davante Adams back. But the Chargers needing a number one guy alongside Ladd McConkey for Justin Herbert after a very successful 2024 season under Jim Harbaugh. And certainly the Buffalo Bills. They paid Khalil Shakir, who had a career year, no doubt about it. But if you can add Davante Adams, not to be that number one threat for Josh Allen, just to be a part of that wide receiver room would seem to make a lot of sense for me. Now, does Davante want to go to Western New York? Does Davante want to head to Los Angeles? I'm not entirely sure. And as a free agent, of course, he will have a large say in his destination. It would make a lot of sense, though, for wide receiver needy teams to make a bid, maybe on a discount for Davante Adams.
Well, that's the thing. I'd be real curious, Ben, to see what he's asking for, right? 32. You said he is still very, very productive. The price for wide receivers is through the roof. I think he still perceives himself to be a number one. I think teams that would bring him in would probably say, no, we're trying to get you at $10, $15 million. I bet he's asking for 2025. How about the Rams? If they don't believe in Cooper Kupp anymore, put the Rams next to Puka.
Yeah, that's also a really good idea. Los Angeles could be a spot for Davante Adams and many different varieties. 6 wide receivers, by the way, making $30+ million. We'll see if Davante can get there. More on FFC up next.
Luck is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the ticket.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and SiriusXM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Money Line at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Imagine combining the exciting investment opportunity of cryptocurrencies with the power of artificial intelligence to maximize your IRA, 401k, or other investment funds. Listen, if you're looking for ways to accelerate your retirement growth, Block Trust IRA has market-leading strategies and solutions for all levels of investors, from $1,000 to millions. And they partner with Bitcoin Magazine's #1 crypto trading fund in the world to maximize your returns. Plus, their team of IRA specialists is here to help you roll over your IRA or qualified retirement account to the new world of cryptocurrency investments. So make this free call right now to set up your account and learn more.
800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. That's 800-434-5313.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
The legal non-tampering negotiating window for free agency ahead of the new league year in the NFL begins on Monday, 1 week away from the official start of the 2025 NFL league year, which means free agency, basically. And last year, Scott, there seemed to be a lot of free agent buzz, some big-time defensive players the questions around the running back, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, and at the quarterback spot, of course, Kirk Cousins, expected to get a lot of money. This year, the free agent class maybe not nearly as robust, and anytime you talk about available players, you focus on the most important position in football, that is the quarterback. Really, the only free agent is Sam Darnold. Kirk Cousins, although he might be a backup in Atlanta, would have to be traded for. Derek Carr, seemingly still that starting quarterback for the Saints. Sam Darnold is really that guy on this list. And when you pair it up, Scott, with a perceived weaker quarterback draft class in 2025, not a lot of QBs that really move the needle for a lot of teams that need a quarterback to do just that. Sam Darnold will be at the top of the charts for quarterbacks this offseason as a free agent. Where do you think he ends up?
Yeah, maybe Russell Wilson you could throw on there, you know, because Pittsburgh's got to figure out what they're going to do with their quarterback situation. But ultimately, yeah, Sam Darnold's the one. Well, I tell you what, Sam Darnold would have been better off breaking his leg in week number 15 of the regular season rather than play those last couple of games because, his stock dropped quite a bit. All the naysayers, had that final of, see, I told you so, that this is the real Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
And even the pro Sam Darnold guys had to have a little question. So where is he going to end up? It's a good, I'm thinking the Raiders. I'm guessing that's where they're going to go. I don't think he's going to go back to the Jets. The Giants wouldn't do it. But the Raiders are in desperate need of a quarterback. I know there's been some buzz with Aaron Rodgers going out there, but I don't know if they necessarily really want to do that. My bet would be with the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah. I think I would make them the front runner as well, Scott, to land Sam Darnold. It would make some sense because although Sam Darnold probably, and rightfully so, has those questions about how he elevates a franchise, what is the ceiling with Sam Darnold at quarterback? Does it make a mediocre team a playoff contender, a playoff team a conference championship contender? I think we have our answer. I do believe Sam Darnold is going to get a pretty nice payday at some point this offseason and can provide a stable footing for a team in desperate need of one, like Las Vegas. A couple of USC guys, Pete Carroll, Sam Darnold, together. Of course, Pete Carroll did not coach Sam Darnold at USC, but still having that foundation together. Scott, another one that's rather interesting to me for being an offensive lineman, always desirable. Ronnie Stanley, not placed under the franchise tag by Baltimore, which is not all that surprising. The Ravens were not probably going to pay him on the franchise tag value. But like we're seeing in KC, and if we take Cincy at their word, you tag somebody so he doesn't hit the open market, so you have the upper hand, of course, in negotiations. When you let somebody see what they're worth in fair market value, all bets are off. Ronnie Stanley, who was great this year at the left tackle spot for Baltimore, but did deal with some injuries the few years prior, is now a free agent. And Scott, for a proven veteran like that, probably going to get a large payday. I think there's a lot of teams that would be in the running for Ronnie Stanley.
Yeah, you wonder if the Bears considered that versus trading for Tooney with Kansas City, but at least you had Tooney under contract for the 1 year, whereas obviously you're not going to get that with Stanley. I'm a little surprised, right? I mean, I know you can't pay everyone, but look, the Rams found that out allowing Matthew Stafford. Did they really think that people won't go after him? I mean, did the Rams really think that about Stafford? Like he's going to come back with his head between his legs saying, all right, give me whatever you got. I'm guessing Stanley's going to get top dollar. There's going to be some team. He's a good player. I mean, geez, you had Derrick Henry. He's got that now on his resume. Not that he really needed that. He's always been good. Little surprised Baltimore would play cheap with him.
Yeah, me as well, Scott. He has been in Baltimore since he was the 6th overall pick back in 2016. 9 seasons with the Ravens and dealt with some injuries from 2021 through 23. But this year, perfectly healthy for every game and was a Pro Bowler once again. You would think the Ravens would try to have that upper hand at least, unless they think, Scott, what Ronnie Stanley is going to deserve is far too much more than they are willing to pay. You would think maybe the Chiefs would even be in the running on Ronnie Stanley. He will be a name to know during this free agency period that really begins in just 5 days. A couple of other names. Devon Holland, the safety out of Miami. Zach Bond, after a career year in Philadelphia. Khalil Mack, a free agent once again. He's Scott Wetzel. I'm Ben Stevens. Football Full Circle returns tomorrow, noon Eastern time on SportsGrid Radio.
You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.